Welcome back to Nick Lynch's Comic Corner, Classics / New Classics. This is episode number 1450 and Doubleshot number 1344. I have two Marvel trades. The first trade is to collect a certain volume or series. This first one is very infamous. Now, this particular book was actually loosely adapted for 2 out of the 3 Iron Man, 2 of the 3 movies starring Iron Man. This is Man Xtremis, written by Warren Ellis. And yes, this guy got a character name after him in the movies. President Matthew Ellis. Yep, artwork by Anna Gurnov. Now, this story was also adapted for Motion Comics. Yep, Motion Comics. I have seen it. It is really good. It's also adapted for a novel. You might be thinking, really? Yes, it seriously has. This whole story arc covers the first 6 issues of Iron Man Volume 4, coming out in the year of 2000, I think it was 2005, if I'm not mistaken, this book came out. Let me just take a look at that just to be sure. Let's see. Well, actually, it started publishing in 2005. Yeah, of course, this book is a relaunch of the previous volume for the series. Yep, it's a relaunch. You see, the previous story that came just before this one was Disassembled. Yep, that's what came just before this storyline. Yep, I have previously discussed it a while ago, actually. Yes, because technically it was the last story arc, basically, to take up the 3rd volume for the series of Iron Man. Now, funny thing about the artist who does this story arc, he also did the Best Defense storyline, which they actually put the covers in here, which I thought that was interesting. Yes. Let me just take a look at it, just to be sure. Like, what episode was it? I could have sworn I covered this, like, a long time ago. Let's see. I could have sworn I covered this at some point. I'm just trying to find it. It's taken a bit to find this one. I thought I did at some point, but apparently the video is not here. Maybe it was taken out by accident. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I'm just not really sure exactly when the heck it was, but I could remember that I did review this a long time ago. Yeah, in that story arc, basically, Tony Stark had to give up his job as Secretary of Defense because he apparently got drunk and tried to kill the ambassador from Latveria. This, of course, is a relaunch, but doesn't feel as though it's after the events of Disassembled. Not really, no. It just basically... Well, it's a story arc done by Warren... Now, this story arc is done by Warren Ellis. It is by far the only story arc he ever did for the series. Now, as for comics-wise, aside from this, the only superhero comic he's ever done that I can think of was Punisher, and he did an arc for Moon Knight. And that was it. Because Warren Ellis, from what I've heard, is not really a big fan of superheroes. Now, the story itself does give a new backstory to Iron Man, which is actually loosely adapted for the very first Iron movie, where he's off in Afghanistan. Now, in the original comic book, like if you read the original classic backstory from Tales of Suspense, number 39, I believe it was in Vietnam, where he basically had this accident happen where he was wounded and taken off to a cave, where basically he met Ho Jansen, the guy who helped make the very first Iron Man R, which they do show off in here. Like, reading this, it's kind of like watching the very first Iron movie. Basically, when it shows his backstory of how he became Iron Man. They explain this via an interview he has. Now, oddly enough, for an Iron Man story arc, it does not feature Pepper Potts. Nope, no mention of her at all. Excuse me. As for Stark Enterprises, which I think at this point is Stark International, it was previously known as Stark Remco. It was Stark Fujima. Remco was Iron Man's girlfriend. It was Stark Fujima Enterprise, what it was previously. And my guess at the events of the previous story arc that came just before this one, Fujima probably was bought out, and they probably just retailed it back to Stark Enterprises. Now, the big thing about this story arc is that we actually have a scientist named Adrian Killian. Now you are thinking, Adrian Killian, you mean the guy who was the main villain of the Iron Man 3? Yes, but that character was anagram of this Adrian Killian, who was a scientist, and a character known as Mahler, who got infected with this virus known as the Extremis. Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's a virus. Of course, this story is also noteworthy for the debut of Maya Hansen. Now, that is another name people have heard of because she showed up in Iron Man 3. And she was depicted as a past girlfriend of Tony Stark. In the comic, it's kind of the same thing here, too. So, the way it happens when you shoot Adrian Killian, basically, is that you see him committing suicide. Luckily enough that, even though this is 2005, basically the same month that this issue came out, the first issue of this book, was also the first issue of the relaunch of New Avengers by Brian Michael Bendis. And I believe also the same month was the release of the first issue of Captain America Volume 5 by Ed Brubaker. So we have 3 books basically going to start here. So this is actually my last one I have to cover for stuff that came out just after Disassembled. Well, for the characters, for the books got restarted. So he commits suicide by putting a gun in his mouth. And you have Maya Hansen walking over hearing this. And then she takes a step back. And somehow she knew there was a suicide note on this printer. She apparently maybe saw it in the corner of her eye. That's basically what's shown here in this book. So she tells everybody that Adrian Killian just committed suicide. And he gave... And this is a terrorist named Mala. This guy doesn't have an actual name. He's a domestic terrorist. And he does not like the U.S. government. That's the way they picked him in this book. Iron Man does fight him halfway through the story. First fight they have, Iron Man loses. And then Iron Man himself gets himself infected on purpose with the Extremis virus. Though he does make some alterations to the thing. This is some of the stuff you would see in the Iron movie, where he has like chips in his arm to basically have the armor come to him. The Extremis stuff allows him to hide the armor inside of his body. He has like little hole in his arm. It says start. And he puts on this very attire. Now this armor, you look at this and I'm like, man, this looks a lot like the armor that he used in Iron Man 1. That's because it is. They used this very armor for the very first Iron movie. Because, well, when you think of it, that's kind of what the armor he had. Which, that was probably kind of like what it was Iron Man 1, where that was the armor he had in the comic at that point. So, why not? Yep, why the heck not? Yeah, so right after, of course, he pretty much Maya gives him an injection of the Extremis virus. This, of course, comes later after, well, they meet up with each other, and he also had an interview which explained the backstory. And then he meets with an old professor of theirs, When you talk about the Extremis virus, and almost like when you read this, it's almost like this could be like the start of a potential story arc, like for this run. And nope, Warren Ellis leaves right after this arc is finished. Yeah, as soon as this arc is wrapped up, Warren Ellis disappears in this book and never returns to Iron Man. Nope, never does. It has been 16 years since the story came out. He never comes back to it. So they talk with him. He gets affected with the Extremis virus. Fights Mahler. Mahler dies. Yes, this guy dies. Yeah, one of those rare times where Iron Man actually does kill somebody. In the movies, he just throws it off. Here, he basically does react to it. But him killing people is very, very rare in comics. I mean, as far as I can tell for this story, I don't think he ever actually officially killed anybody prior to this. I mean, I've read a lot of Iron Man comics. My friend Edgar probably could correct me on this. But I don't think prior to this story, I don't think he's ever killed anybody. Not really. No, I think he does kill somebody in the next story arc. But I think that's it. I don't think he kills much of any other character. Nope. And then he contacts, I think it's supposed to be the FBI or the military, where he has Maya Hansen arrested. The reason why? Because she's the one to give the Mahler the Extremis virus. Aided and abetting, she gets hauled off, and she's not upset by this at all. She's very accepting of this. Oh, and don't worry, Maya Hansen herself does return in this particular run as a recurring character. Yeah, apparently Iron Man, when he became director of S.H.I.E.L.D., not long after this, I'd say like less than a year, he got her a part of a work release program working for S.H.I.E.L.D. Yep. And she was around for this volume. After that, she wasn't seen again until the start of Karen Gillian's run, where in the very first issue, she dies. Yep, she dies. I have no idea why Karen Gillian brought this character back after no one's seen this woman in several years, just to kill her off. Yep. But for the opening story arc of Iron Man Volume 4, it's really good. I thoroughly enjoy it. I give this book roughly a 9.5 out of 10. It's a damn good book. I don't know my friend Edgar's what his thoughts this particular book is, but I like it. I really do. Next up was a book that a lot of people probably thought I should review this like a few years ago, or at least like probably should be ages ago. It's the first trade for Cable and Deadpool. If looks could kill. And as to the cover art, it's Rob Liefeld. Yep, he does the artwork for, I think, just for the first 42 issues, and the remaining 8, I think I done by somebody else. Excuse me. This book is one of my favorite this season. As far as I can tell, these two did reunite prior to this as for a mini-series for X-Force. And they came back for this ongoing. Yep. As far as I can tell, one of the few books they work on together. Because they worked on X-Force Volume 1, Volume 2, this book. I think that's it. I think that's all the books I can think of they worked on together. This book, of course, collects the first 6 out of the 50 issues released this series. Now, why am I reviewing it now? Because Marvel, when they decided to have Deadpool renumbered to close to 300, they counted this series for Deadpool's numbering. Yep, they did. Anybody thinking, really? They did? Oh, yeah, they did. Yeah. On the cover, it's clearly Rob Liefeld, but the interior art is, I don't think, it's said here it's not done by him. He was not credited as for some reason. Not really sure why, but the interior artwork for the first 2 issues by Mark Brooks, Shane Law, and Chris Stevens of Udon. I don't know who Udon is. Udon chief is Eric Kao. 326 by Patrick Zercher, who's actually a really good artist. And yeah, this story arc is simply them meeting up, and, well, there's a team-up series for them. My only guess is the reason why that Marvel did this series, because these two characters at this point are popular, but not like uber popular that they are like. I mean, Deadpool didn't become uber popular until the Deadpool movie came out. My only guess is the reason I believe this book was launched in, I believe it was 2004. Let me look over here because I don't think it was that long ago this book was started. Let's see if I can get to the right page here. This book was started back in 2004. And, well, Rob Liefeld did the cover art here, but not the interior work. That was something by somebody else. Yep, started back in 2004. Interesting. Yeah, I went on for a few years. Now, Fabian Caesar definitely was the writer for pretty much almost his entire run. And, well, it was finished up by Riley Brown. This book went through not many artists. I mean, once Mark Brooks left, Patrick Zurcher stayed to issue 24. And he had like 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 more artists that came after that. But mostly put like a good chunk of this run is done by Patrick Zurcher, who's a really good artist. Yep. Now, this book, of course, collects the first 6 issues of this run. Yep. And this, of course, came... I think it was either before or after X-Force Volume 2. Let me take a look at that, just to be sure. Because I could have sworn that... I think it was X-Force came out before or after this one. I'm not really sure. Excuse me. Yeah, this series was launched at the same time as this was basically like a companion book. Alright, excuse me. Now this book is basically them meeting up with each other and just working together throughout this entire series. Things starts out with Deadpool, out of costume, just going to a place where there's like some weird blue people. And then of course Cable, we see Cable where he's just levitating upside down for some reason. Don't know why, but he just is. Yep. Now, if you're a fan of the 90s version of this character, you would definitely like this book. Yes. Of course, you have Deadpool in costume. Yeah, he does the thing like, this is for Normandy, this is for, Bridget Nelson! Bridget Nelson. Wow, beat a bunch of guys in purple. Over Normandy. Yeah, it's so hilarious. Of course, he slices people up. Cable's just being shot at, and of course, he's blocked by his force field. Cable, of course, doing nothing, and of course, Deadpool's like, blow my mind. If it isn't Nathan, Dayspring, Atkinson, Summers, Cable, Soldier X. Or you just call yourself Priscilla now. And he's like, Cable's fine. So, this is going to be like a testosterone thing. Probably, yes it is. Oh yeah, you gotta love Fabian Caesar's style. Like, this is funny. Yeah. I mean, it's like, in the case of this book, it's kind of like, Fabian Caesar never lost a step writing Deadpool. This is actually quite funny. Yep. So then apparently uses his telepathy to blow out Deadpool's head. Though Deadpool heals up right away. Don't worry about that. He's not dead. And of course you have this weird woman who's got a very somewhat ugly looking... I'm not sure how this woman's supposed to be. Like, her face looks normal, and then she has changed it a bit to make it look a little bit older for some reason. There's a pass for somebody, and of course Cable, it just floating outside of a woman's window for some reason, acting like a freaking stalker. Then he contacts one named Irene Merriweather. Nope, it's not it's not Destiny. Nope, she was not blind. And you have Deadpool alive, perfectly fine. Nothing unusual for Deadpool. And this is a dialogue. So, I was hired to find this stuff, Cable. What's your excuse? Wait, don't tell me you're helping poor, weak mankind order the T-1000 get back in time and tell you to stop it. And he's like, in the wrong hands, this synthetic virus could be a dangerous weapon. You have Deadpool saying this. So basically, it's a very dangerous weapon. I prefer to be not cynical. Explains which dog in Mox who stole it. Mooks who stole it. That was unexpectedly a detour. I plan to destroy the virus. My employer said it could be something good. Changing the way people look, I mean. And that's not exactly a good thing. And he shows out his mask like, ooh, yeah. Hey, if you ever look like Ryan Reynolds crossed with Sharpie, why did you understand? Would you be Kryptonite? Like, I love the fact they reference Ryan Reynolds. That is hilarious. I don't know if that was a joke on the part of Fame and the Seas to do this because, well, Ryan Reynolds was playing Deadpool 12 years after this issue came out. Yeah, 12 years. I mentioned Kryptonite. Yeah, that's funny. He's like, believe whatever you want. Since my job is bring it back safe and sound, yours is search and destroy. I guess kick your butt is inevitable. Don't make you laugh while I do this. Do what? Blows his head out again. Oh, don't worry, he's perfectly fine. And then we see this goose around this one guy, and of course Cable basically gets it off him, no problem. Guy returns to this, he's like, what the heck is this? And then he shot this other guy. And then we have this woman, and they have this redhead woman again, where she fires a bazooka at him. And then he does completely something unexpected. He used telekinesis to apparently remove this goo from her, and apparently also sheds her clothing. Where she's like, firing Extremis isn't decent. Stealing a virus from research doesn't make you a freedom fighter. My launcher! You have no clue what clinging to the world requires. And he lifts her up in the air. Maybe you can be so stupid, naive, cuddled, and spoiled. Spiritual and cultural lotties will be free. Age with eyes closed. Your youth doesn't exist stupidity. And then somehow, with his talking, he proceeds to strip her naked. He says, hey, bye, don't give you a second chance. Give you right. And like you learn from your mistakes. And he apparently removes the goo from her body. Yep. And then you see her just... So apparently this is not a woman, but a guy? It's kind of weird. Yeah, apparently this is like supposed to be a guy. Somehow. Because we see, like, a guy just laying there. And then Cable contacts Irene. Hello, Nan, got the scoop on those spammers. Yeah. I don't think he'll be needed right now. Who is this? Your boyfriend's a bit tired. Looks like Turkey's shock virus someone through his pores. Yep, without straw, without limits. He needs rest now. Cable. And he's become out of that. One World Church in France. And apparently people get dipped in this water stuff. Please, it hurts. Yeah, the skin will be the same. You will suffer the sins of many for one. All is one. And apparently there's weird devices go on their head. And then Deadpool just gives people just lime soda. the bottle said Mountie Dew. That's funny. And of course, another cover by Rob Liefeld. Excuse me. Right, my nose is a bit stuffed right now. So basically, Cable contacts various people. And an appearance by Charles Xavier. Yeah, if you're curious about this is probably just before the Planet X storyline. And of course, they chat for quite a while while Cable... Apparently, Cable decides to disassemble his house while in the middle of conversation. Disassemble his house and just rebuild it. Yeah, I don't know why. And of course, you have Deadpool just dealing with the people, and then he gets captured after he gets injected, and he's like strapped to this thing to get this virus. The only reason is his figure because of his healing factor. Yeah, apparently his healing factor is return his skin for some reason. It's never properly explained. And of course, Cable comes to rescue him from this thing. Yep, Cable rescues him. A guy who doesn't like Deadpool very much. Yep. So a big battle ensues. And this lasts for pretty much the next couple issues. Fighting, 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 fighting. And of course, Deadpool comes out, shoots up Cable. The Cable's able to block it thanks to his, well, virus he's got in his body. Has conversation with Irene. Robot comes out. And they fight for pretty much the remainder of the next issue or two. And of course, you have Cable apparently like losing some of his skin because of this virus. Because of this, I believe this virus was given to him by Apocalypse when he was a kid. Mm-hmm. And then Deadpool turns to the goo for some reason. Yeah, this lasts for like quite a while with the whole thing with goo. Yep, and then basically like he's like glop mess. All it's evidence is his clothes and his sword. And then somehow after a page turn, Cable's slowly putting himself back together. And apparently Deadpool's back together too. And he looks normal. Yep, Deadpool's normal. Puts his clothes back on. Then he takes out this corporation. And apparently these people get transferred to the moon of all places. Yes, the moon. And apparently Cable just puts stuff together. And, well, he kind of in the way starts his own country. Yeah, Cable has a country named Providence. Yep. He puts his own country together. And of course, the other people proclaims him a savior. And he goes to the Pacific Ocean, lifts this chunk of metal. And basically, then we cut to a shield helicarrier. We see Nick Fury, of all people. Yes, Nick Fury. Yep. Then Providence is up. Then we have a ship shows up, Cable ship. Yep. Some shooting. And then you have Deadpool bring back normal. And then, of course, well, the bicep by 2, and then he transports him to his facility. And then we see George J.W. Bridge. Yep. We see this other black. I think this guy here is supposed to be Bridge's son. Yeah, I don't know who J.W. Bridge is. He's a supporting character who popped up in, I think, the first issue of X-Force. He's become associated with Cable over the years. Well, that wasn't until Rick Remender decided to have him die in the pages of Punisher. Yeah, he's associated with Punisher too. And then Nick Fury contacts the X-Men. Well, the Astonishing X-Men. Because you have Cyclops, Beast, and Emma Frost here. It's very weirdly, it's like, the way the artist draws Emma Frost, seems like she's like a much older woman than she is. I mean, appearance-wise, if you look at her book coming at this point, she's presumably in her late 30s. Like, I would say mid-30s, I'd say. Here, she looks like she's pushing 40. She's like, it looks like she's pushing 50. Not sure what the purpose of that is, but yeah, this book, really good. And I get this book roughly a 9.5 out of 10. Damn good book. Can't wait for review the next book. We'll never get a chance to get, because apparently, like, the very, like, next book, per se, is, like, not the Apple's website for some reason, but 3, 4, and 5 are here. Yep, 3, 4, and 5 are here, but for some reason, this book is not. I'm not really sure why. It's just that, well, that is for some reason. But yeah, that's the episode review. Stay tuned for my other 2 reviews today, which will be Don't Toy Me, Miss Nagaro, and Case Closed. Okay? Next video. Bye.